Let me guess. Back in elementary school, things were easy for you. You were the kid who finished the test in 10 minutes and spent the rest of the class reading a book. You were told over and over again how bright you were. Success felt like your birthright. But now, you're lying in bed at noon, doom scrolling, paralyzed by 3 unread emails. You have half-finished projects collecting dust and a deep, sinking feeling that you are wasting your life. Meanwhile, the kids who weren't as smart as you, they're running businesses, they're getting promoted, they're doing the things you only dream about. So what happened? How does the golden child grow up to be a struggling adult? That is exactly what we are going to talk about. Because this isn't about laziness, it's about a psychological trap that got set for you 20 years ago. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being labeled smart as a kid. It feels like a gift in the moment, but it operates more like a curse in slow motion. When adults constantly tell a child they're gifted, talented, and natural, what they're actually doing is tying that child's entire sense of self to something they didn't earn and can't control. Intelligence at that age just is. You didn't train for it, you didn't sacrifice for it, it was just there, like eye color. So the kid builds their whole identity around it. The internal story becomes, I am the smart one. That's my thing. That's who I am. And for years, school keeps confirming it. The structure of early education is almost perfectly designed to reward raw cognitive ability. Read fast, recall facts, process quickly, you win. And these kids win constantly, without trying, without failing, without ever really being tested. Then puberty hits, or high school, or college, or the job market, and suddenly the game changes. The problems get harder, the material stops being something you can skim the night before, and for the first time in their life, the smart kid has to actually sit with discomfort and push through it. And they can't. Or more accurately, they won't, because something much deeper is going on underneath the surface. See, when your identity is the smart one, effort becomes dangerous. Think about that for a second. If you've always believed that things come naturally to you, then the moment you have to struggle with something, your brain reads that as a signal. And the signal isn't, I need to work harder. The signal is, maybe I'm not actually smart. Every moment of confusion, every failed attempt, every subject that doesn't click immediately, it doesn't feel like a normal part of learning. It feels like a threat. It feels like the mask is slipping. So the gifted kid does what any reasonable person does when they feel threatened. They retreat, they avoid, they procrastinate, not because they're lazy, but because procrastination is a defense mechanism. If you never fully try, you never fully fail. And if you never fully fail, you never have to confront the possibility that you were ordinary all along. You get to keep the dream alive. You get to keep telling yourself, I could do this if I actually applied myself. That story is comfortable. That story is safe. Trying and failing? That's terrifying. And this creates a pattern that follows these people into adulthood and just wrecks them professionally and personally. You'll see it show up as perfectionism first. People think perfectionism means caring deeply about quality, but for the former gifted kid, perfectionism is almost always rooted in fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being seen as incompetent, fear of producing something that reveals the gap between who they think they are and what they can actually do right now. So they over-research, over-plan, endlessly revise, and ultimately, never ship anything. The project stays in draft mode forever. The business idea never gets a landing page. The application never gets submitted.
You'll also see it as a deep, almost allergic reaction to being a beginner. Growing up, these kids were good at things quickly, so being bad at something, going through that awkward, clumsy, embarrassing early phase of learning something new, feels intolerable. It doesn't feel like a normal part of the process, it feels like humiliation. So they stop putting themselves in situations where they might look like they don't know what they're doing. They stick to what they're already good at. Their world gets smaller and smaller. And then there's the paralysis that comes with the weight of potential. This one might be the cruelest part. These adults walk around with this invisible burden, this sense that they're supposed to do something significant, that their life is supposed to look a certain way, that being normal, being average, having an ordinary life is somehow a personal failure. And this belief makes even the smallest tasks feel pointless. Why clean the apartment if your life is supposed to be epic? Why answer that email when you're clearly meant for something bigger? Potential sounds like a compliment, but when you've been carrying it since childhood, it starts to feel like a debt you can never repay. Meanwhile, the people who weren't labeled gifted, they had a completely different education, one that the school didn't give them, but life did. They failed early and often. They learned that failure wasn't the end of the world. They figured out how to sit with frustration and keep going anyway. They built a work ethic because they had no other choice. They got comfortable being uncomfortable. And that skill, that willingness to stay in the ring even when you're losing, turns out to be worth infinitely more than raw intelligence in actual adult life. There's a reason so many famously successful people weren't the smart kid in class. It's not that intelligence doesn't matter, it's that grit, consistency, and the ability to keep showing up when it's hard matter more over time. Intelligence is a head start. Work ethic is the race. So how do you break this cycle if you recognize yourself in it? The first step is genuinely uncomfortable, but it's also the most freeing thing you can do. Let go of the identity. Stop being the smart one. Stop protecting the label. That label was given to you by other people when you were a child, and you've been a prisoner of it ever since. You are not your potential. You are not your IQ. You are not the kid who aced the test without studying. You are a person, a full, flawed, capable, developing human being who has to do the work just like everyone else. And here's the beautiful part. The moment you stop protecting the image of being naturally gifted, you're allowed to be bad at things. You're allowed to struggle. You're allowed to be a beginner. You're allowed to write the terrible first draft, do the awkward workout, send the imperfect email. The stakes drop completely because you're not gambling your identity every time you try something anymore. You also have to get honest about the procrastination. Stop calling it laziness, because it's not. It's fear dressed up in pajamas. Every time you reach for your phone instead of starting the thing, ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of here? Usually the answer is judgment, or failure, or the possibility that your best isn't good enough. And you have to make peace with those fears rather than running from them, because avoidance makes the fear grow and action makes it shrink. Start doing the thing badly, on purpose even. Write the rough draft that embarrasses you. Show up to the gym as the obvious beginner. Pitch the idea before it's fully baked. Prove to yourself repeatedly that imperfect action still moves you forward, that the world doesn't collapse when you're not brilliant at something immediately. Shift what you respect in yourself. Stop measuring your worth by how quickly you understand things or how little effort something takes. Start measuring it by consistency, by follow-through, by whether you showed up today even when you didn't feel like it. Those are the qualities that actually build a life. Because at the end of the day, the story of the smart kid who never lived up to their potential is one of the most common quiet tragedies out there. Brilliant people, frozen. Capable people, hiding. Talented people, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. The kids who weren't as smart are out there doing the thing. Imperfectly, consistently, relentlessly doing the thing. You can be smarter than everyone in the room and still end up with the least to show for it. Or you can decide today, with all your intelligence finally pointed in the right direction, to just start, messy, scared, unprepared. That's how the gifted kid finally grows up.